Soggy skies there on a Friday. Welcome back to BT at 7:44. Time to talk COVID-19 south of the border. And for that, we're joined by our good friend Peter Wagner from News 1130. Good morning to you, my friend.
Well, good morning, Thor. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, lots to talk about today. Let's begin with Premier John Horgan. He's urging Ottawa to do more about these border hoppers who are allegedly coming up from the U.S., saying they're going to Alaska, but they're just ending up in B.C. What's your take on this?
Yeah, this is for sure my favorite topic, is to talk about the border. Certainly, it's concerning to think that there are people who are trying to exploit a loophole to be able to come up and go to tourist destinations and just go to restaurants or just go visit the island. The idea of that is a bit bizarre, to be sure. The only questions I have as somebody who crosses the border all the time is the prevalence, is how often is this happening? I've seen a lot of secondhand reports. There are some firsthand reports, but I would just wonder the extent that all of that is happening. But to be clear, it is worrying to think that some people might be able to do that. There's also the chance that some people might not get those extra screening questions at the border. But as many of us that cross the border know, if you try to tell them a fact, 11 times out of 10, they're probably going to ask you to prove it. And if you say you are going to Alaska, generally, you kind of have to prove that. The other thing to note, as you might see some out-of-country plates, you might see some Washington State plates around Metro Vancouver, not all of those cars necessarily belong to people who are here violating border orders. A lot of expat Canadians came back home after the Prime Minister had said that message of it's time to come home, and many of them just brought their cars with them. So not every car you might see might be somebody who's tried to sneak through the border, but I'm certain that something like that has happened in some instances.
Okay, and also there was an outbreak of COVID-19 at the University of Washington where over 100 students tested positive.
Yeah, that was connected to the university's fraternity system. At the University of Washington, the fraternity system is very big, a lot of houses, and they're all very cramped conditions. They're all very close together. Now, these fraternities had reduced the number of people who were living in them by about 50%, but still, there are thousands of people who are living in very close, cramped quarters. They were not designed for space. Certainly, fraternities and their live-outs not designed to give people all of that social distancing. So lots of people in really close contact. It's unclear in some of the reporting whether or not these cases were related to any specific social gathering or simply everybody being together. But certainly it is worrying to see that many cases, especially as we're looking at bringing students back to universities here in the state in the fall. And
Peter, just before we talk 4th of July, give us an update on the situation with the protest zone in Seattle.
Yeah, CHOP, the Capitol Hill occupied protest, it seems to be occupied no more. Seattle police did sweep the street there earlier this week, clearing out protesters, making a number of arrests. The city had tolerated the occupation for a number of days, in fact, installing some of those barriers that you just saw there to allow emergency vehicles to get through. But lines of police marching down Capitol Hill early in the morning, pushing people off of those streets. Capitol Hill not so much occupied anymore. Police are back in that precinct that they had abandoned, but still scattered protests cropping up all over the Emerald City.
Okay, and finally, telling good old-fashioned Americans to physically distance during July 4th sounds like a tall order.
Yeah, that sounds like something that might be difficult to do. In fact, it's so difficult that I think just about everywhere I've been that I've seen messages from government officials. This is not the weekend to have a gathering. Of course, this is the classical American get-together. Going to be watching the fireworks on a little screen with fewer than 5 people. Seattle canceling their fireworks, Bellingham canceling fireworks. You're not going to be able to go to big shows, but I can tell you that here in Ferndale, where fireworks are legal, lots of people have already been celebrating by setting off fireworks, and my dog has been less than pleased.
Oh, well, I'm sorry to hear that. Are you seeing more people wearing masks out and about?
Oh, it's a bit hit or miss. It really depends on where you are. But soon it's going to be difficult for people who aren't wearing masks. Governor Inslee has actually instituted an order coming up soon that if you try to go to a business and you're not wearing a mask, well, that business is going to have to refuse you service. Of course, the exceptions there are for medical purposes.
Okay, well, that could get dicey. Thank you so much. Lots to talk about there, and thanks for dissecting it, Peter.
Yeah, thanks as always, Thor.
Okay, you have a great one, and we'll talk with you soon. That's Peter Wagner from News 1130. Coming up, it's